coronavirus relief is finally in sight. Your business may be going under, but Congress will give you $600. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm your super spreader of holiday cheer, Chris Chappell. Hit that like button. It helps us with YouTube's algorithm. It's been a great Christmas, hasn't it? Mr. and Mrs. Claus here gifted Americans with $600. That makes up for the months of coronavirus lockdowns that have shuttered small businesses and caused massive job loss nationwide. Honestly, coal would have been more useful. At least we could have burned it to keep warm. Those $600 stimulus checks are part of a $900 billion coronavirus stimulus bill. It includes other things like an unemployment boost of an extra $300 per week and a $325 billion small business boost. Hopefully, this time, less of that money will flow into Chinese state-owned companies. Yes, that actually happened with the previous stimulus bill. But surely, since it's taken Congress more than 6 months to agree on this new bill, they'll have worked out all the kinks. The stimulus bill has been extremely controversial, and it shows just how broken our government is. Be sure to watch to the end of this video when I'll explain. But first, there's a lot of confusion about what's actually in the coronavirus stimulus bill, and President Trump has not helped.
It's called the COVID relief bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. This bill contains $85.5 million for assistance to Cambodia, $134 million to Burma, $1.3 billion for Egypt and the Egyptian military, which will go out and buy almost exclusively Russian military equipment, $25 million for democracy and gender programs in Pakistan, $505 million to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama.
He goes on for quite a while, from things like tens of millions of dollars for the Kennedy Center, money for construction projects at the FBI, $25 million to combat the spread of Asian carp in the Great Lakes. Now, in that video, President Trump didn't specifically say he was going to veto the bill, and it passed with a veto-proof majority in Congress anyway. But Trump's message is obvious. It's that if Congress can approve so much money for art centers in foreign countries, why are Americans only getting $600 each? According to Trump, Congress should cut that wasteful spending to give more money directly to Americans. The problem is, Trump is getting the facts of the bill wrong. Congress passed a $900 billion coronavirus stimulus bill, but they didn't pass it on its own. The coronavirus stimulus is just part of an even larger $2.3 trillion omnibus bill. An omnibus bill is a mega bill that contains a whole bunch of unrelated things. And in this case, the $2.3 trillion omnibus bill also contains the U.S. government's budget for the next several months, until September 30th, 2021. This year it's divided into two parts, a $900 billion coronavirus stimulus package and $1.4 trillion for everything else. The things Trump criticized, like foreign aid, are standard parts of the government's annual omnibus spending bill and fit within that other $1.4 trillion. I also noticed Trump didn't criticize the part of the bill that maintains $1.4 billion in cash for Trump's southern border wall, or the $15 billion for customs and border protection. However, Trump is asking the question many people are asking. Why are Americans getting so little? $600 is half of what the last stimulus bill gave, and that was half a year ago. Couldn't we take some of the $25 million for democracy and gender programs in Pakistan and put it in the pockets of Americans? Well, you wouldn't believe who agrees with Trump. I'll tell you after this short commercial break. Welcome back. And if you didn't see an ad, YouTube is demonetizing us. That's why we need your help. Go to patreon.com/AmericaUncovered to find out how you can support the show. So, this $2.3 trillion omnibus spending bill shows how broken the U.S. government is. But before I get into that, you won't believe who agrees with Trump on the bill. Trump wants Americans to get $2,000 instead of $600. And it's the Democrats who agree. Here's Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi giving President Trump her seal of approval. If you think that's strange, just wait. A little later in the episode, I'll tell you about how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Trump agree. House Democrats had tried to increase the stimulus check to $2,000, but that was blocked by Republicans. They said they were concerned about the impact on the deficit. So Nancy Pelosi called the House back into session on Monday to vote on it. She wrote, to vote against this bill is to deny the financial hardships that families face and to deny them the relief they need. We're recording this episode before that vote, so I don't know what actually happened on Monday. But even if that bill passes the House, the Republican-controlled Senate will likely block it. But if Republicans are concerned about the impact on the deficit, why not just make some cuts to all the foreign spending? Well, that's what Republicans then tried to do, but the Democrats blocked that. Are you surprised it took 6 months for Democrats and Republicans to agree on a spending bill? And that is the reason this spending bill is such a mess. But for Congress, this isn't a bug or a flaw in the system. For Congress, it's a feature. I'll tell you why after the break. Welcome back. Now you might be asking yourself, why was the coronavirus stimulus bill wrapped up into the larger omnibus spending bill? This is something Congress really likes to do. They dump all of their personal projects into one massive funding bill so individual projects can't be rejected. It's an all-or-nothing deal. So unless you want a government shutdown, everything needs to be approved. Which is why the omnibus bill includes stuff about Smokey Bear, horse racing, and the Dalai Lama. Only you can prevent Congress from doing this. Just kidding, there's nothing you can do. I mean, why should Congress try to get individual bills passed, which is difficult, when they can just roll them all up into one giant bill that must get passed to avoid a government shutdown? This is something President Trump has actually tried to fight while in office. When Congress created a massive omnibus spending bill in 2018, Trump said this.
I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever.
For the next 2 years, Congress basically behaved. Instead of one massive spending bill at the end of 2018 and 2019, it was broken into multiple packages. But this year, Congress is back to business as usual, which is why this spending bill is more than 5,000 pages long. This is actually only 1/5 of the omnibus bill. We literally didn't have enough paper to print the whole thing. Now, 5,000 pages, that is 5 times this stack of paper. That would take our hardworking congresspeople days and days to review, right? Yeah, but they had a few hours. Members of Congress only have hours to review and understand 5,593 pages of complex legislative text and nearly 2,000 pages of explanatory materials, working around the clock from the time the bill and materials were made publicly available to the public until 1:46 p.m. Monday afternoon, just hours prior to the vote. Even if a member attempted to read and understand the legislation, it would not be physically possible. So if Congress doesn't have time to read it, who even had time to write it? Congressional staff. Each member of Congress has a group of legislative aides that typically write and review bills before they go to a vote. Sometimes there are also outside lobbyists who write bills, but that's a whole nother topic. And it's the legislative aides who then summarize to the congressperson what's in a bill. And in the case of an omnibus bill, it's not so much written as compiled from previously written bills, which is how politicians can cram through things that the American people probably wouldn't actually support because no one has the time to read the bill. This was something Trump criticized.
Among the more than 5,000 pages in this bill, which nobody in Congress has read because of its length and complexity.
And you know who agrees? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She tweeted, "Members of Congress have not read this bill. It's over 5,000 pages, arrived at 2 p.m. today, and we are told to expect a vote on it in 2 hours. This isn't governance, it's hostage taking." So congratulations, America. You can end 2020 knowing you agree with both Trump and AOC. However, AOC did end up voting for it. And in the end, Trump ended up signing it, which averted a federal government shutdown, which means that the government is pretty much the only thing in 2020 that didn't get shut down. Trump did say he was sending a redlined version of the bill back to Congress, along with a formal request for lawmakers to rescind or cancel spending items he finds objectionable. This is called a rescissions process. Basically, Trump's request will put the funding for those programs he redlined on hold for 45 days while Congress decides whether to approve his request. If they don't do anything, the money still goes to those programs. And since Trump supports Democrats' $2,000 coronavirus stimulus checks, surely the Democrats will consider some of Trump's requests. In an alternate universe that is definitely not this one. In this universe, Democrats in the House have already said they will reject all of Trump's rescissions. Oh, we were so close to having Democrats and Republicans actually working together on something. So close, and yet so very, very far. And it's not the first time a spending bill has passed like this. Back in 2014, a $1 trillion omnibus bill passed right before the deadline to stop a government shutdown. And plenty of enormous bills have passed without Congress really reading them. Like I said earlier, the way this bill has played out is a feature, not a bug. Of course, there's a deeper issue at play with all of this. The U.S. economy has tanked because of how the government has chosen to respond to the coronavirus, often based more on politics than on the science. Then the same government promises to fix those problems by handing Americans a tiny amount of cash that ultimately comes from American taxpayers. It's become a glorified means of wealth redistribution that gets determined by a small number of politicians and their aides working behind closed doors. Why are we trying to stop the government from shutting down again? The answer is probably somewhere in here. So enjoy your $600, Americans, and rest assured, as the nation crumbles around us, this year, the National Institutes of Health is spending $2 million to see if hot tubbing can lower stress. The government is spending $2 million on whether hot tubbing lowers stress? Just reading that raised my stress. I need a hot tub. And $2 million. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.